My name is Jeff. Welcome to dirtyshirt.info. I've got a project going this morning on a 2005 Dodge 1500 pickup truck. It's an SLT model. We have what we believe to be a leaking water pump. So we're going to replace that today. I picked this part up online from autopartswarehouse.com. It was about $80, and the thing with water pumps is that we can't do a side-by-side comparison, so I'm relatively certain that we have the right part. We've been crawling around in the truck this morning just to kind of check things out. But we have a very, very slow leak. It's probably, gasket or something. The gasket is actually in the shop, and we'll probably look at that a little bit later, but here's the part itself. And, kind of get an idea, thermostat is going to be on the driver's side, and it fits in something, something along these lines. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the lower radiator hose off. We're going to drain that into a catch can. We don't want that stuff poisonous as all get out, so we don't want to let that run out into the driveway. So, okay, we've got all the water out of it. Like I said, we pulled the lower radiator hose out and caught that water. It comes gushing out, so be prepared for that. We've removed the coolant overflow, and as a combination also contains the wiper water fluid. There are two bolts that hold it on primarily, and then there are also two wired connections. One of them actually has this little lock piece on it that has to come off before you can release the wire from its connector. So be aware of that. That has to come. It actually comes up, and then it comes all the way out, and that's how you get that off. The other one does not have a lock on it, and it's just sort of that catch type of thing that you see in a lot of automotive wires. So what I want to do is I want to take the fan off, and the fan's going to do two things. One of them is there's a big nut that holds it on to like the fan clutch on the outward side, and then it goes to a pulley on the inward side. And what happens when you try and loosen the nut is that the whole thing tries to spin. So you got a couple of options here. Is you leave the belt on, you rent some tools from the auto parts house to hold the pulley still and at the same time break the nut loose. I've done that. That works, right? It's definitely a way you can do that. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to take a air chisel with a pointed bit on it, and what I'm going to do is, because I want this to rotate, I want the nut that I'm about to work on to rotate counterclockwise, so I'm going to get out on the edge of one of the flats on that nut, and I'm going to hit it with this air chisel, and that will cause the vibration, will cause it to sort of work itself loose, and then we can get the rest of it with a wrench. Broke loose. We'll just keep working on it until it's off. So we're about to remove the serpentine belt. Normally a vehicle has a path for how that runs through the pulleys. It's actually on a sticker somewhere underneath the hood. This vehicle doesn't have that. Don't actually understand why that is. So we've done a sketch. What I would recommend though is we'll hold this up here for you for a second. If you've gotten yourself into a jam and you don't know what the path is for the serpentine belt, you can just pause the video and then reference the drawing here, which is exactly what we'll do later on when we go to reassemble. Okay guys, my apologies. We're actually finishing this job up, but I'm going to insert this toward the beginning of the project. When we talked about removing the serpentine belt, let's poke your head down in here, and it's actually maybe easier because you can see a whole lot of what's going on. In order to get that serpentine belt loosened up, what you do is you just take a ratchet, right, 3/8 inch, just without a socket on it, and there's actually a hole here, a depression, and if you take your wrench, you can move this back and forth, and when you pull up on it, that's going to allow you to remove the serpentine belt off of the pulley, and then the whole thing will just come undone. Of course, after we get the serpentine back on, it's exactly how we'll do it in reverse, is just move that tensioner back and forth until we can get the belt slid over the top of the pulley. Okay, with the fan removed, we can get the shroud, the actual fan shroud off. That was a real simple affair. It's two bolts, one at the top on either side. They're 13 millimeter, and then the base of the lower portion of the shroud is just clipped in, so it comes out, and then you can kind of jiggle the thing out, and the whole works. Now we can actually start to see what we're going to actually work on here. And you can see where I can, I'm going to try and remove parts while it's still connected to the vehicle, so we don't have to wrestle with it on the bench. Okay, we've taken all the sort of the tensioner off. There are two pulleys here that have to come off, and we tag and bag those, so we keep track of virtually everything that we've removed from the vehicle so far. One of the things that we always have problems with when we're doing any kind of coolant system work is getting the hose off. It's always a bitch. So one of the ways that we do that is that we were first down here, for example, is we remove this clamp, right, and get that well out of the way. But then the hose is actually going to be frozen onto the connector on the pump. So typically the way I do this is that I'll use this as a pry bar, but I'm going to make sure that I understand where this tip is going to touch, right, because I don't want that to be on anything delicate or any kind of, you know, soft anything. It's got to be on something that's rigid and hard. And then you can take it, lay that in, and give it just a twist at the same time while you're pulling on the hose, and it'll come right off. So both of these have been removed. So to me, this job is all about parts management because you have a ton of them. And if you look at the pumps, we've just broken loose the old one. So here it is sitting up here. And you're going to be faced with this dilemma. This car has 95,000 miles on it, or the engine does, and you're not really sure, did I get all my bolts off? Because the pump just isn't going to fall off in your hand, right? You got to give that a little bit of help to get it to go. So we spent probably a good while here making sure that we've got all our bolts because the pump seems so tight attached to the engine. We ended up using a pry bar and giving a little bit of help, and it fell right off. One of the things that we did in order to keep track of our parts is we took the box that the new part came in and just sketched out the basic outline and just made holes so that we can keep track. Now you may say that all those bolts are, you know, look the same, but if you look up underneath here, right, you got all kinds of different stuff going on. I mean, it's just a mess, and I don't know what that is. Maybe it's 12, 15 bolts holding this thing in, and it's really important that they get put in. It's just a level of drama that we don't want to mess with, so that's why we took some time to keep these straight. And then for the other parts that we took off of the vehicle, again, box that this thing came in, it's actually another box that it came in 2 boxes, and we tagged and bagged everything and put it in the exact order that we took them off so that we don't have to figure all this stuff out. So here's the front of the engine with the pump removed, and again, this thing has a leak, and we suspect that it's probably coming from this area somewhere in here. It's our best guess. We did pull one of these bolts out, and it was rusty. It was different than all the rest of them. So we can sort of assume that probably the gasket that marries to the pump itself has gone bad, and it just started to leak a little bit, right? And that's what's caused our problem. So at least we can kind of see everything kind of matching up with how the symptoms were presenting themselves. On the engine itself, it left a little bit of residue where the pump gasket attaches to the engine, and we, by hand with a scraper, just took and just worked on that really gently, kept it wiped off, that type of thing. I don't want to use any power tools on that. It's just too aggressive. You don't know what that could cause on that soft aluminum engine. So here is the gasket that goes along with the new part. And the way I'm orienting this is that there are 2 sort of pinch points that have been built into the gasket, and they go on either side of the pump here. Here's one of them, and then here's the other. And so that kind of gives you an idea of where it is that you're going to end up. And then the gasket all along its length, there are these little nubs that kind of hold it in. I mean, this is so superior to the way things used to be done back in the day, where you had a flat, almost like a paper gasket, and you put goop all over it, and it was just a big pain in the neck. So this is the way they've chosen to redo this, and I think it's probably going to be an improvement. So really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with these 2 pinch points and start working this gasket in all the way around, and it appears to be very held in very well, and we're not going to have to manage this as we're attaching the part. Okay, I've worked the gasket into place, and there's, like I said, there's all these little nubs that kind of hold things together, and I've just kind of, just worked it in and done any adjustments that need to, and I'm going to rely on the hardware that holds this together to pull it into the engine and, actually make that seal that we're looking for. Okay, we've got the new pump on, and used our diagram as I mentioned earlier. The only thing that we did after we got the gasket in is we took a little bit of fresh coolant and we just sort of dabbed that along the edge, all along that gasketed surface, then put it in here and just worked out the bolts until they're finger tight. We don't have a shop manual for this. What we're going to do is we did find some information on the web that stated that the torque spec should be 18 foot-pounds. So I have a torque wrench here. And I took a best guess in terms of how I want to do this, and I went ahead and I numbered the holes. So it goes something like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 total bolts. But you notice the back and forth pattern, right? Because we're going to start to ease those in. I'm not going to go 18 pounds on the first bolt. I'll probably go something like, you know, just till I start to get some resistance on the wrench, but I'll do it in the same pattern and work my way up to the 18 so that the gasket seats equally across its entire surface. Okay, let's take a look down in the hole here. So we've got the new pump on, right? Everything is there. What we did do when we broke for lunch was that we went and stopped by the parts house and picked up a new thermostat. The old one really did not want to come out, and it's really not that big of a deal to just buy another one. It's $18 over at the parts house. So new thermostat, and we'll put the housing on here, and then we're going to start to do everything in reverse. I don't have torque specs on anything else other than the pump itself, but I'm sure that they are out there. We're just going to be careful. We're not going to go crazy with this thing, or maybe just take a best guess as to how tight we want to make those bolts, but we will try and make them even wherever we have that type of situation, like there are 2 bolts holding on the housing for the thermostat. Truck's been running. We've got it all topped up with, we used 50-50 mix of antifreeze, and went ahead and ran it. We got the heater on full blast because the heater core lost water when we did the work. We have added it to the radiator, and now what we're going to do is just kind of wait it out, right? It's been running for about 20 minutes. We've been keeping our eye on it. Don't see any leaks or anything like that, but as far as I'm concerned, this job is done. Thanks for watching.